Hello and welcome to the Adventure Film Podcast, and this is the 7th of our 10 discussions about adventure films. This one's for the 1937 film Lost Horizon. A while ago I came up with 10 films that for me epitomise adventure in film, the adventure genre, and the 10 films that for me really sort of scream adventure, if you like. Then later I had the idea that we could discuss these films, so that's what this is all about. So my name is Garen Ewing and I am a comic artist and writer. I've got a book called The Rainbow Orchid, which is just a great big adventure. That's what I wanted to do, so that's my interest in it. I just love the adventure genre in its sort of most classic format, and I'm doing this with my brother Murray Ewing.
Hello, I'm Murray. I write short stories, mostly horror, fantasy, science fiction.
So Lost Horizon is our, did I say 7th? We're on our 7th already.
Yeah.
Now this is, there's 3 in the 1930s, I think. We've done King Kong, 1933. She, which we haven't done yet, is 1935. So Lost Horizon is 1937, so it's a later one. I think She and King Kong were RKO. I think Lost Horizon's Columbia. And it's a Frank Capra film. Probably his most famous one that I know is It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
And so Lost Horizon is based on a novel that was written just a few years before, in the year of King Kong actually, 1933, by James Hilton.
Yes.
And he is most famous for Goodbye Mr. Chips, I think, and Lost Horizon.
Yeah.
But Goodbye Mr. Chips is the only other thing I know.
Both Goodbye Mr. Chips and Lost Horizon have been adapted into straight talkie films and musicals.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew Lost Horizon was a musical. I didn't know Goodbye Mr. Chips had been a musical.
Yeah.
Right.
And in fact, he wrote Lost Horizon first, and then Goodbye Mr. Chips was a bigger success, and then people started reading Lost Horizon.
Oh, I see.
And in fact, one of the reasons why Lost Horizon as a novel succeeded, it was brought out in paperback. It was one of the first in a series called Pocket Books.
Yes.
It's Pocket Book number 1.
Yeah.
Which isn't the first US paperback, but it's sort of very close to it.
It popularised the paperback explosion.
Yeah.
Have you read the book?
No.
I read the book a long time ago, but the film has kind of obliterated anything I remembered of it. So this week, while drawing, I started listening to the audiobook version.
Right.
Unabridged, of course. I didn't quite make it to. I just got just over halfway, so I'm half informed of the book. Although I did read it a while ago. My book version that I bought it second hand paperback, and it's a tie-in with the musical from 1970s, 73 or 74, and it really put me off reading it because it looks horrible. And I've never been interested in the musical version, but for this I looked up some YouTube footage of the songs, and it looks abysmal. It looks embarrassingly bad. I didn't even think of this. Of course, it's an early 70s musical.
Yeah.
So it's very much in that sort of, it's quite hippie-ish.
Oh, really?
That sort of Age of Aquarius type music, which I quite like, Age of Aquarius and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But this is not up to that standard.
Yeah.
Well, it's got John Gielgud, I think. I don't know if he's Chang or the High Lama. I think he might be Chang, actually.
Yeah.
And he hated it so much that he made sure he was busy on the night of the premiere, so you have to attend it.
Oh dear.
So anyway, that's the musical. I'm not sure I'll ever read that novelisation of it, just because the cover art. But I do really like the book.
Yeah.
And I will probably buy myself a nicer edition, I think. So what's the background to the film?
Yeah, well, it starts off right in the middle of action. It's in China, in an unspecified part of China. And I think in the book it's India.
It's in a place called Baskul.
Yes.
And I get from the book it's actually in Afghanistan.
Ah.
Because they're flying from Baskul to Peshawar, which is just over the Khyber Pass.
Right.
That's the sort of first main city in India over the Khyber Pass.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think they're flying east. So it's got to be Afghanistan.
Oh, right, yeah.
And they mention, in the book, they don't say Baskul is in Afghanistan, but they do say, they mention some Afghans stealing a bus. And so I think there's strong association. But I think it's a fictional Baskul. I don't think it exists.
Yeah.
Frank Capra's put it into China.
And our hero is Robert Conway, who's a Brit.
Yes.
A British man who, I don't know, he's some sort of diplomat.
He's a diplomat, and he's pegged for the Foreign Office.
Yes.
No, not the Foreign Office. He's
Foreign Secretary.
Foreign Secretary, yes.
Yeah. But we see him in a situation which demonstrates his leadership skills and his ability to be a hero.
Yeah.
Because there's a revolution going on, and he's got to get all the Europeans or Westerners out of this country.
The white people.
Yeah, I mean they do.
Here's this phrase again, which we've come up before.
I mean they do actually say he says, "Oh, I've saved 90 white people, but there are 10,000 natives."
Yeah, Robert Conway, and this is the same as in the book. Is less of a racist for these colonial times, thankfully. A lot less of one, which is good for the hero. But there's still a mentality that kind of pervades the background to the story.
Yes, yeah.
Just because of the times, unfortunately. I do wonder if China. I wonder if it's moved to China for political reasons, because this was in the run up to World War II, and of course the Sino-Japanese War. For the Japanese, World War II kind of started several years earlier, and the Chinese when they went to war. But that,
well, there was famously an altered version released in 1941 or something.
Yeah,
they changed the title to Lost Horizon of Shangri-La because of a reference that the US president made at the time to Shangri-La. Just a passing reference, but they thought they could re-release the film.
Yeah, the Shangri-La was invented by James Hilton.
Yeah.
But it's become a phrase like Xanadu or Utopia.
Yeah.
It's got a wider meaning now. I mean, people who don't know, who have heard of Shangri-La but don't know Lost Horizon will still use it.
I think there's probably a lot of people who think it's a genuine myth.
Oh, there are. Yeah, definitely. And Michael Wood did a really interesting programme about searching for Shangri-La, and it was actually really good. Or was it Shangri-La? There is a place in Tibet called Shambhala. Well, a mythical place called Shambhala, and I think someone said that Shangri-La may be based on that. I'm not sure, I think.
Well, apparently there was some famous articles in
National Geographic,
just which might have inspired James Hilton to write.
Yeah, I think that's likely. That's very Tintin-ish, actually, which is quite interesting, because Georges-Remy Hergé, he was a lifelong subscriber to National Geographic and got a lot of inspiration for Tintin's adventures. Anyway, I mean, the first time I heard of Shangri-La was I'm a bit of an Electric Light Orchestra fan, and they're I don't know what year it was, 1976, A New World Record, which was my favourite album of theirs, and one of my favourite songs on that favourite album is Shangri-La. Do you know the song? I bet you do.
I love one of the songs off that album.
It's quite ballady.
Yeah, it's funny because they did Xanadu as well, didn't they?
Oh, that's true. Yes, I totally forgot that with Olivia Newton-John. Yeah,
Neutron Bomb.
Which, or Olivia Newton-Core. A friend of mine at school used to call her, or actually his dad did. Anyway,
yeah. So Robert Conway is getting these Westerners away from this revolution by trying to get as many planes as possible. It's almost like the D-Day landing. You know, they're getting as many.
Well, it's Dunkirk.
Yeah, Dunkirk.
Yeah.
And so he's slowly getting rid of people. And there's a moment where, in order to provide the planes with a signal of where to land, he sets fire to a barn. And apparently this isn't in the book, but this is something Frank Capra came up with as a way of demonstrating his leadership capabilities.
Right. Yes,
he comes up with this idea.
He takes control.
Saves the dog. Burns this.
I did think it wasn't a very thorough search of the barn before he set fire to it. He just got rid of the people he could see and the dog.
But he also had a couple of rats in his pockets.
So then the last group of them make it out.
Yeah, the last group, one of them is his younger brother, George Conway.
Yeah. This is different. Up until halfway through the film, I'll talk about the book. After that, I can't remember anything.
Right.
But the characters are different, and I think that's quite interesting. So the characters on the plane in the film are Robert Conway, Lovett, who's a paleontologist.
Yeah.
Is he British in the film? He says he's going to be a knight when he gets back to London, I think. So I guess he is.
He doesn't particularly have a British accent, but he's got that sort of fussiness, which you might think.
He's an American actor, Edward Everett Horton.
Yeah.
There's a famous comedian who we kind of grew up with in the 70s, who this was his favourite actor. And his real name was Maurice Cole, but he changed his name because of this famous actor. Can you guess who it is?
No.
Kenny Everett.
Really?
Yes. Kenny Everett's favourite actor was Edward Everett Horton.
Blimey.
You might not, looking at Lost Horizon,
Yeah.
Horton was quite a famous actor. but he was particularly famous for this kind of double take, where he'd sort of nod confidently at something and then do a double take. And he does that throughout this film, almost.
Funny, I thought all the way through he's doing quite a bit of Stan Laurel. I thought Stan Laurel.
That's partly because of his hat. He does wear a bowler hat. Well, he does.
Yeah, you're
and
right.
Then he does a lot of double takes and looks, and there's a really funny bit where he's trying to work out the east and west, and he's working out on his fingers.
Yes,
but that's really Stan Laurel, the sort of confidently nodding and then turning around and trying to work it out, and you can't do it.
Yeah.
But Horton had his own. He had his own dictionary of stock phrases, if you like, that he was famous for,
really?
and you see them all in this film. There's a bit later in the film where he's scared by his own reflection in a mirror.
Yes,
that was totally his creation.
Yeah, apparently Frank Capra did allow a bit of improvisation.
Yeah, he liked improvisation, didn't he? So anyway, back to the plane. So we've got Conway and his brother George Conway.
Yeah.
George Conway is he's not in the book. There's a character called Mallinson in the book, who's I think a diplomatic assistant to Conway or something,
right.
And they're kind of mirror images of each other.
Right. Yeah.
There's Barnard.
Yeah.
The American
sort of businessman.
He is a direct character from the book, and then the other one is Gloria.
Yeah.
Who's I saw her described as something I read as a prostitute. I didn't get
I was
that from the
ask
film.
You that because in one of the extras on the DVD, there's a deleted scene, and the commentator on the deleted scene calls her a prostitute.
Oh, really?
And when he said that, I thought,
I read it somewhere completely separate from the DVD. So. Although that could have been the source.
Yeah. I wondered if she was referred to that in the script, for instance.
Yes.
I just thought she was like a good time girl.
Yeah, I thought.
Too many
she's
times.
like an actress.
Yeah.
But she's. Or maybe just a rich, spoilt person. But anyways, I certainly from the film I didn't think.
No.
Prostitute!
No, I think you need a bit more of a reason to accuse her of being a prostitute.
Yeah.
But she's. Even though she's quite a minor character, she's one of the ones who's the biggest barometer of change from the beginning to the end. Because when we see her, she's extremely cynical. She also thinks she's going to die.
She's got a terminal illness.
Yeah, or believes she has.
Yeah.
And also she's heavily made up. Well, of course you wouldn't be able to tell. But and then later we see her without makeup, which is quite, and it's a physical transformation.
But she does, once we're at Shangri-La, she kind of disappears. She doesn't play any active role. She's, as you say, she's a barometer for the change, but that's about it.
No, it is minor.
I think the bigger barometer for change is Lovett, actually, because he's really suspicious.
Yes. Yeah.
And he comes round eventually and gets quite into it. In fact, he wants to teach geology, doesn't he? So he wants to actually get involved. But we don't see any ambition from Gloria.
No, you're right.
She's just probably happy to be well.
Yeah.
But in the book, there's a female character, Miss Brinklow, but she's a sort of old, uptight missionary, Christian missionary. It's a very different character.
Yeah.
So they're not really analogous, apart from
being female.
That's it. Yeah. So there's only 4 characters in the book.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's who sets off on this plane.
Although before they set off, we see the pilot being.
Well, he disappears.
Yeah.
And
presumably then he's thrown out, knocked and thrown out.
Yeah. You see a silhouette rise up, putting the hat on, and off they go. No, this reminds me of Indiana Jones. I only just thought of that.
But Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom.
Yeah, that starts in China. They go off on a plane, and there the pilot turns out to be
working for Chang, some Chinese.
And they fly over snowy mountains. I mean, some of this would obviously happen.
They're going towards India. Yeah, of course. Yeah. It turns out they're being kidnapped. They knock on the pilot's window.
Yeah.
And he undoes the blind and points a pistol at them.
Yes.
Because they can't get an answer from him, so when they raps on the window and they see the pistol, they realise... No, hang on. Before that, they realise they're suspicious because they're going the wrong way. They're going the wrong direction.
Barnard realises... I think it's Barnard, isn't it? Realises they're flying east instead of west, or is it west instead of east?
Well, it must be west instead of east, because they're going towards India.
Right.
Never eat shredded wheat. Yeah, they're going west. But there is a little bit of kindness shown by the pilot, because Gloria, quite a dramatic moment, loses it and tries to get out of the plane.
Yeah.
But she's suffering from a lack of oxygen, and the pilot throws some oxygen to her,
yeah,
showing that there's some compassion there.
Presumably he is, I mean, it's later more than implied that he is an agent of Shangri-La, sent to capture, kidnap Robert Conway, but it's all benevolent. You know, they basically want him there.
I mean, to me, this is one of the inconsistencies of Shangri-La, because they kidnap them at the point of a gun, and I don't think that fits in with the philosophy that we later learn.
Yes.
And I really don't think that's a strong enough case to get Conway there. Yeah, they really want him. I mean, it turns out that Sandra, one of the characters in the film, has read all his books and thinks that he'd be ideal.
Yeah.
So they kidnap him at the point of a gun to get him there. I think that's a bit of a weakness.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, especially dragging four innocent bystanders along as well.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, there's a couple of character points that occur while they're in. One is the simple thing is that Robert Conway is excited by the idea that he doesn't know where they're going.
Yes.
Whereas his brother is quite nervous.
Yeah.
And also there's the thing about this is actually a scene that was deleted.
Yeah. The DVD you can get at the moment is a restored version, and they've got as much as they could found. So some of the scenes are quite old, and I was going to talk about this scene. It suddenly goes all crackly and dim.
I mean, partly it was removed from the World War II release version because it's quite obviously a pacifist.
I wasn't sure if it was because he's also drunk in that scene.
Yeah.
So when I saw it, I thought, is that because he's drunk or because he's giving a pacifist speech?
Yeah, I think the idea is that being drunk allows him to say what he really feels.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he says that if he had his way as foreign secretary, first he says, I'd get rid of the army. Get rid of the army, sink all the battleships, and then invade. It's not.
If invaders came along, they'd be so sort of surprised that they think, well, what's the point in attacking with guns? And they'd stop. Yeah.
Which isn't convincing. I don't know about you.
It's not convincing. Of course he was drunk.
Yeah, but then he says, but I wouldn't have the courage to do that.
There's also the point is that even if that may not be practical and he may not do it in reality, which is probable, of course he hasn't got the courage, it shows his philosophy.
Yes.
He's tired of the conflict. I mean, remember this film was made in the run-up to World War II. Even when James Hilton wrote the novel, I think Adolf Hitler was Chancellor then, or just made Chancellor or something, and of course World War One was very much in living memory. But 1987, 36 when it was filmed, were very much rumblings in Europe, I think.
Yeah.
To have that kind of philosophy would certainly have been a minority opinion. I would certainly amongst government officials.
Yes.
A standout scene for me is the refuelling.
Yeah.
That's quite exciting, isn't it?
Yes.
Very well done. It's a little vignette in itself. A masterpiece in itself, I mean.
Because you can't tell from that scene whether things are good or bad. You know, you're thinking, what's going on here? They're refueling us, which is sort of good because they're being cared for, and it shows that they've got a destination in mind, but also there's these foreign faces looking in at the windows, and everyone's a bit, we can't get out. They're not letting us get out of the plane.
It's really well done, though. I mean, you've got an actual plane, of course, landing and taking off, and then the tribesmen circle the plane in horses, and there's camels, and there's dust, and they use their knives to break open the petrol, the gasoline cans, and pour it in, and they're at the windows staring at them. It's brilliant, really good, and it all happens really quickly, and then they're off again.
And of course, in terms of the adventure films we've been talking about, this represents that period where they're going over seas or deserts.
Yes.
They're going over mountains here, which are a sort of desert.
It's off the map. Yeah.
In fact, there's a scene they find a map when they finally land. They basically crash land, and the pilot dies. And Robert and George Conway get into the cockpit.
Yeah.
And they find a map in the pilot's coat. Yeah. And they actually say, oh, this is where we are. Here's where civilization ends. We must be 1,000 miles beyond it. So it's that point of being off the map again.
Yes, yeah. And they're in total deep snow, barren, mountainous landscape in the middle of nowhere.
And Robert Conway says, don't tell everyone else on the plane.
Yeah.
Because they'll just panic.
Yeah.
And of course, as soon as they get into the plane, George Conway panics and says, we're going to die!
Yeah, that's his
typical younger brother.
Yes. Did you think he looked a bit like a young Humphrey Bogart?
No.
Oh, I did. So there. Anyway, just trying to tenuous link with our other films.
Apparently the actor who played George Conway didn't really like his role in this because he was such a, he was the one who was always complaining and panicking and
yeah. But really that makes the film a lot more interesting having that character. In the book it's the Mallinson character. In this one they're brothers, but yeah, he's the only one who never changes into the Chinese traditional dress. He's always in his suit.
Oh yes, yeah.
I think he's always in it. And he just wants to leave. He doesn't believe any of the things he's told about Shangri-La.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll come to that. One thing I was going to say, I'm not sure if I referred to this in previous discussions, but I always thought the music was by another Max Steiner film. Because we've had Max Steiner did King Kong, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and he did She, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And I thought he did Lost Horizon as well, but actually he was the musical director for Lost Horizon.
Oh, right.
But the original music was by Dmitry Tiomkin, yes, a Russian composer. And I think he was nominated... Yeah, the music was nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
It was nominated for a load of Oscars. It was nominated for Best Assistant Director, Best Music, Best Sound, and Best Outstanding Production, that's what the best film was called.
Oh, Best Picture, yeah.
And it won Best Art Direction and Best Film Editing. Oh, and Chang was nominated for Best Supporting Actor as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually, an interesting thing about the music, Dmitry Tiomkin, this was his breakthrough film. And of course that happened with Lawrence of Arabia and Maurice Jarre as well.
Oh, right, right, yeah. It's interesting, the connection. I find the musical connections between these really interesting. Because we've had, this is our 7th film. And I think we've only had, we've had 3 composers, basically, haven't we? We've had Max Steiner's done 2, Maurice Jarre's done 2, and then we've got Time Bandits and Hidden Fortress, individual ones. But this one has got a Max Steiner link anyway. Funny enough, it was the nomination for Best Music didn't go to Dmitry Tiomkin. It went to the head of sound at Columbia Pictures, I think. It was a nomination, not a win, but still.
Right, yeah.
He made a brilliant decision to hire Dmitry.
See that spot? Yes. That's where we were this morning. He had it marked. Right on the border of Tibet. Here's where civilization ends. We must be 1,000 miles beyond it. Just a blank on the map.
What's it mean?
Well, it means we're in unexplored country nobody ever reached.
In the film, the pilot's dead straight away.
Yeah.
In the book, he survives for a bit and tells them there's a lamasery that they could get to, and then he dies.
Oh, right.
Whereas in the film, I think Robert Conway has just decided he's going to go off. Yeah. Which is probably, I think some of them realise that's
when George Conway says he's... Oh, actually, I don't know if it's him.
No, it's I think
Gloria,
later,
isn't it?
He says, we know he's not coming back.
Yeah, he'll never come back.
But a line of porters is seen approaching the plane, and it's Chang.
Yes.
And some people from Shangri-La.
Yeah.
And one of the first things he does is ask about the pilot.
Yes.
Which kind of shows that, I mean,
it's
there's a connection. There's a connection there.
Maybe one of his men.
Yeah, which we learn later, I think, is true. Yeah, Chang is played by H.B. Warner.
Not one of the Warner brothers.
No. And he, I didn't realise this, but he played... It's obvious now. Now I know. But he played the the druggist in It's a Wonderful Life, the one who makes the mistake. And I've forgotten It's a Wonderful Life's the main character's name. Is it George? I think it might be George.
I don't know it that well.
He tells him that he's given the wrong medicine, and he's drunk, and he hits him, I think. And that's one of the best characters in that film, I think. Really well done scene. So anyway, that's the same. All the main... I mean, this is a Chinese... Chang's supposed to be Chinese, of course. Yeah. He's played by a Westerner. Yeah. The head of Shangri-La, the High Lama, is not a Tibetan or a Chinese. He's
Belgian.
Yeah. It's an odd... In the book, he's from Luxembourg. Yeah. I wonder why they changed that. So
maybe they didn't think...
Maybe people don't know what Luxembourg is.
Yes, yeah.
What's that? Where's that?
Yeah, about the casting, apparently a lot of the Frank Capra knew already who he wanted for a lot of the parts, but certainly the High Lama,
Sam Jaffe.
Yeah, Sam Jaffe. the studio didn't like his performance, and they filmed
it. Freaks me out slightly, actually.
Yeah, it is a bit weird. But he is supposed to be, 300 years old.
Yeah, and I think he's supposed to be blind as well. In the book, he is, because it's those staring eyes that I think, oh God, blink.
But they actually refilmed his parts with another actor, who was a bit more. It seems like a bit more of a Father Christmas take on it. He was a bit fatter and jollier.
Oh, right.
Which I don't think would have
worked.
Ho
ho ho! Welcome to Shangri-La.
But one thing I thought was interesting to me was one of the actors they considered was Fritz Leiber.
I was going to say, did you see that bit? Yeah.
Who's actually the father of the author Fritz Leiber.
Yeah.
Who was a Shakespearean actor.
It was Fritz Leiber.
They called him Fritz Leiber in the commentaries, but
is it
Fritz Leiber Jr., the author, makes a point of saying that it's Leiber.
Ah, good. Well, he would know.
Yeah.
Fritz Leiber was in a Charlie Chaplin film, I think. I've forgotten this. I think he plays... oh God, I can't remember. I think he might be in Monsieur Verdoux. I think he plays a priest in Monsieur Verdoux, I think, or something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. So they get taken back to Shangri-La.
Yes.
I mean, this is the adventure stuff for me.
Yeah.
It's all very exciting. The plane escape, up in the air, where are they going? A crash, and then climbing through the mountains. It's really tough. And going to this impossible place. Yeah. This is the bit that I think, exciting adventure. And
it's almost like an island. I mean, it's got its own climate.
Yeah, yeah. The great tradition of Lost World stories. Yeah. This fits in very nicely. And it's perhaps a bit of a late one, 1930s. It was still kind of... I mean, Lost World films had gone through... Sorry, Lost World stories had gone through kind of the romantic adventure stage with Rider Haggard and Jules Verne type stuff, and they'd become, I think, in the 20s a bit more pulpy.
Edgar Rice Burroughs
being quite a strong proponent of them, and by the 30s they were starting to die out, because by then the Earth was not so mysterious. That's one of the exciting things actually, is by the 30s international air travel was a reality. So there weren't that many lost places, although this uses an aeroplane as the method of conveyance to, or almost to, the Lost World, and you probably wouldn't have it without the aeroplane. Yeah, it wouldn't be as convenient, almost not convenient, but as easy. Anyway.
They certainly couldn't be dragged by porters for 500 miles there.
No,
it would be a very different story.
Yeah. There'd have to be some. I mean, I'm sure it could be done. Of course, it could, but anyway, that's the point. About the Lost World story was kind of dying down in the 30s and 40s to some degree. I mean, it's never died out. There's always a way to do it. I mean, I'm doing one. Yeah, the Rainbow Orchid, because I love Lost World stories, is that. And in fact, watching Lost Horizon again, I thought, oh my God, Rainbow Orchid is really similar to Lost Horizon. But I thought one of my main influences was Alan Quatermain, Rider Haggard. And actually, I think I've taken more than I thought. Inspired by from Lost Horizon.
Rainbow Orchid is set in the 1920s.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The other way to do it is to go back, set it back in time when you knew less about the world. To do it now, when we've got Google Earth, anyone can have a good old look over Tibet and see what's there. I mean, in fact, after the Michael Wood series where he was looking for Shambhala, and I think he might have called it Shangri-La or Shambhala in the series, I can't remember now, it was a while ago. I actually looked up where he'd been on Google Earth to see, and you can see, I mean, these places that were no white man had been to, no Westerner, that were unknown, that were off the map, that were impossible to get to. You can open up Google Earth now and look, and there's this huge desert that's just a complete plain, and there's a golden blue, if that's such a thing, lake in the middle of it, and there's a single mountain, and I mean, it's Lost World stuff, but it's accessible to everyone from their desktop. Pretty amazing. But so Shangri-La exists in a valley completely surrounded by mountains that protect it from the harsh weather. And it's got a climate, and there's only one entrance and exit, this tiny little high place, and that is beautifully shot. And that, I find that particular aspect of it really gets the imagination going, where they walk through. I mean, there's a bit where they're leaving and you're looking out through the hole, and there's the sort of wooden, I don't know if it's a rope bridge or something, out into the mountain, but you can see below them the top of a mountain, It shows how high up they are.
Yeah.
And that's just the environment of these places, I think, is really exciting. These sort of impossible places almost.
Yes, yeah.
But they exist.
Yeah.
But anyways, they look down into and there's this beautiful valley. With
the Valley of the Blue Moon, it's called.
Yeah, that's right.
Of course, as well as being isolated, it's isolated from the outside, but also inside they've got no means of communication.
Yeah.
One of the things they discover, they say, oh, now we're safe, we can radio London and tell them where we are. Oh, actually, you know, the only way of getting a message out is from this tribe of porters, and we've been expecting a visit from them for about 2 years.
Yes.
They should come up. They should come soon.
I think a famous review said it's a brilliant film, but because someone explained to me how they got a grand piano up there. And I thought, there is an answer to that.
Yeah.
Because a piano can come in pieces and can be assembled.
Yeah.
I mean, people took grand pianos into Afghanistan through the Khyber Pass.
Really?
But, although you would think, is it worth it?
Yes. But of course, this is quite different from all the other adventures that we've covered, where people go into a place of peril and try and get something of value and then escape with it. Whereas here they're going into a place which is the opposite of peril.
Yeah.
You know, it's the whole idea of Shangri-La is it's a peaceful, quite wonderful place, but the people bring their own peril with them.
Yes.
It's almost like the peace of the place brings out the worst in each character.
Right.
And they have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Because like Lovey
Yes.
gets quite paranoid. He thinks, you know, everyone's going to kill me.
Yeah.
I can't remember what. I mean, Gloria by this point is just sunk in depression anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
Barnard, I can't remember what his reaction is.
He's quite optimistic, and of course we learn that he was his business. He was what's the word? Well, it's some financial
entrepreneur. It was something to Bryant Utilities was his company.
Yeah, and in the crash,
yes,
he lost loads of people's money, investors' money, and so he's wanted by the police actually. Yeah. So he's kind of happy to be there.
Yeah.
To some degree.
Yeah. But his negative reaction, as it were, is when he discovers the gold in Shangri-La and he immediately focuses on that.
Although it doesn't last, does it?
No.
It doesn't develop because the Shangri-La's peace and community takes over, and he ends up wanting to build a sewers or a running water system for them. Because
he started off as a plumber, I think he said.
Oh, that's right.
And
of course.
And also Lovett started off as a teacher, retired and became a paleontologist.
Yeah.
So it's almost like both of them go back to their things
their first love
originally.
Type of thing. Yeah.
And of course, it's interesting that we do get the mention of gold. Because that's another thing that's been in every film. Yeah. I mean, here we get a glimpse of it.
Yes, and it wasn't the impetus.
Yeah.
It's something discovered once there. But these lost places have them in abundance. Yeah. Type of thing.
Well, it's a sort of fairy tale element, isn't it? Yeah. It's like there is a treasure there.
It's at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah. The treasure there is really the peace that you find there, but it's almost like it's got to have like a concrete symbol to it as well.
That's a very good point. Yeah. The concrete symbol of it. And I think again, you say once the actual sort of main part of the story in Shangri-La is quite peaceful. I think this kind of follows the tradition of all these, I mean, not necessarily Lost World stories, but they started out with, I think the origin of the Lost World story, I think there's several origins that come together, but one of the stronger ones is typified by Thomas More's Utopia.
Yes. And
probably earlier than that, Plato talking about, I was going to say Afghanistan, Atlantis. You began with A. Definitely not Afghanistan. Atlantis.
Yes.
And it's a place that you make up so you can talk about society, either satirise your own society or present an alternative system and its possibilities and or flaws.
Yeah.
So which is like Utopia, Blazing World by Margaret Cavendish, and Atlantis, I think, was a parable, a satire, wasn't it, of some kind, to sort of point out the flaws. So you take it away from your own society, so you're not criticising anyone in particular.
Yeah.
But the other way is to present a utopia.
Yes.
And I think that's what James Hilton might be doing here. It's a state of mind more than a place, and he's getting ideas across. Yeah. So he's using this framing device of the Lost World, the travelling to this place. And those are the bits I'm more interested in, the adventure bits.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Shangri-La, the sort of discovery of the place is good. It's like Alan Quatermain, where they discover Zuvendis. Zuvendis in Alan Quatermain. You know, the exciting bits of adventure getting there.
Yeah.
Once they're there, it's then the excitement is the discovery of this new community.
Yes, yeah.
And how it works and what they do, and you know, and then there may be quite often the people who, as you say, the people who arrive bring the peril with them.
Yeah.
Like I think in Alan Quatermain, it's a long time since I read it, but I think it's ruled by two queens, and one of them falls in love with it can't be Quatermain. I can't remember who the characters are. Henry Good or someone. Might be getting mixed up with King Solomon's Mines now, or is he in both? I'm asking the wrong person. Anyway. Yeah, or there's peril there anyway. Yeah, like King Solomon's Mines, where there's I think it says right, there's a king and he's who's ruling over his people with an iron fist. Anyway, hope I got that right. Yeah, but this is the great tradition of the Lost World type thing. I think that's why it sits in this. Yes, yeah. Or the utopian. Thing anyway. Yeah, if not Lost World, but
I mean Chang does explain to Robert Conway the philosophy behind the place, which is moderation.
Moderation, yeah.
And there was a dodgy bit. I don't know if you noticed this. He's talking about how the place, you know, we believe in moderation in everything, you know, and we believe in being moderately strict and so on.
Moderately celibate.
Yeah, there's no crime. And then there's this dodgy bit where Robert says, well, what happens about... You know, are there any squabbles over women? Yeah. And what happens if a man wants a woman that another man already has? And I'm thinking, well, what about the woman? You know, they don't actually... I mean, obviously, I don't know if Robert Conway's just testing Chang's philosophy. Yeah. Or whether that's supposed to be meant as an actual example. But surely the answer there is, well, it's the woman's decision.
Because I think they say, well, what would happen? Well, the man would give up the woman. Yes. But what if that man wants her as well? I think it's about being kind, be polite. I think in the book it mentions it would be good manners. What if the woman doesn't want to go, but the other guy really wants her? It would be good manners for the girl to go with the other man. So that's even more... I don't think that's said in the film. It's even more dodgy. Yeah, it is obviously... it's a bit out of time, this film, as we've already said, with the way the Westerners dominate. I mean, the other main character they meet, so once we first see her as they enter Shangri-La, Conway looks up onto a balcony and sees Sandra, who's the other main character really, and she's a Western girl. Raised in Shangri-La pretty much. She arrived with her parents were explorers or something. Yeah, her mother died en route, and her father died not long after they got there, or something, or the other, something like that. So when she was a baby, so she's grown up there. And it turns out she's read Robert Conway's books and thought, and she's a great admirer of him. So basically, she's kidnapped him for herself. but her excuse is that she thinks, he'd love Shangri-La. Let's get him here. She has read his books, but seen through to the man behind the words. She said, I can't remember. I saw a man whose life was empty. Right. But obviously, she saw he had potential as well. Yeah, I think Conway is a well-drawn character in this actually, because he's quite ambivalent about. I mean, when they're escaping from China, he's a man of action and doing stuff. Yeah, but you get the feeling, he's doing it for other people, not for himself, and he's sort of playing by the world's rules, but knows that that's not him. Yeah, exactly. He feels though he'd like to do it a completely different way, but sort of practicalities means, I've got to do it this way. The design of Shangri-La, I think, is fantastic, and that's one of the things of when I first watched Lost Horizon. I actually didn't take the story the first time. I quite enjoyed it, the film this is, but the one thing that I thought was amazing was the set design, and I think that's just beautiful. I mean, it is very Art Deco. Yes, and this is a 1930s film, and this fits right in with that, which makes it a bit incongruous with the fact that it's a several hundred-year-old. Tibetan monastery built by a Belgian. Yes, but forgive them that. Especially the main hall with all the steps going up and the shiny floor. I think that's beautiful. It's really amazingly done, and the outside of it as well. I mean, I really do feel as though they're in a Garden of Eden type place here, and it's hilarious actually. Later, when Sandra she's like Snow White. There's a squirrel that warns her that Conway's coming, and then she's got these they're my pigeons. They're pigeons which she's rather ludicrously attached flutes to their tails, and there's deer. When she's teaching the class, there's the children, and then just sitting by the side is a deer. Which reminds you very much of it's very Disney.
Although actually, this reminded me. Talking of the pigeons reminded me of a quote from something, which is funny because you said that Rainbow Orchid seems to have taken some stuff from Lost Horizon. I think Lost Horizon has also taken something else that you've done as a comic.
He's copied me.
The Tempest.
Oh right,
yes. Because when she talks about when there's the pigeons flying around with these flutes on their tails, create music, and that reminded me of that quote: "The isle is full of noises, sounds, and sweet airs."
Oh yes.
And that made me think, hang on, she's a bit like Miranda. And then you've got the High Lama as Prospero.
Brilliant point. I'd never even thought of that.
And they've been brought across. I mean, they've basically been shipwrecked. Air shipwrecked. On this island. And you've got the sort of comic low characters. I mean, you haven't really got a Caliban. I suppose George Conway. George Conway. He's could be a sort of Caliban. The woman Maria. But I mean that's stretching a point. I'm not saying it's a one-to-one thing, but it's got that same sort of feeling.
Quite strong. I think that's very legitimate. Quite strong.
So Miranda on her island is she's one with nature,
and she's very innocent. I mean, she was born there in the Tempest. She's taken as a very young child, in fact a baby, I think. So she's innocent of the world, and then a brave new world that has such people in it when these strangers arrive. Very good.
By the way, what religion do you follow here?
To put it simply, I should say that our general belief was in moderation. We preach the virtue of avoiding excesses of every kind, even including excess of virtue itself.
Well, that's intelligent.
We find in the valley it makes for greater happiness among the natives. We rule with moderate strictness, and in return we are satisfied with moderate obedience. As a result, our people are moderately honest, moderately chaste, and somewhat more than moderately happy.
That Sandra and Maria are not characters in the book.
Oh, really?
There is a female character in the book, a Chinese princess, who lives there, who's kind of those two characters in one, I think, to some degree. But that's quite. I think that's probably one of the biggest departures that the film's made.
Maria is a strange character, I thought.
She's supposed to be a Russian.
I was going to say. I mean, she's actually Mexican. And that's what I thought she was.
Actress.
But then, but then on the commentary they call her Russian. So I guess she's got to be Russian.
The character Maria is Russian.
Yes.
But the actress is Mexican.
She has been there since 1888. So she's obviously aged but preserved.
So she'd be 65 or something. But actually she's 20 or something.
And she latches on to George Conway. And she basically wants to escape from Shangri-La and is persuading George Conway behind the scenes to take her with him.
Because I think in the book they fall in love.
Right.
I don't remember. This is now into the bit that I haven't read this week. But in the film, George Conway doesn't seem. He's not interested in her. She's totally fallen for him. But he's
or she may be just using him.
No, I don't. No. Maybe if it's desperation, and in which case he's definitely using her. But he's not.
He definitely seems to. He's definitely been avoiding her at one point because she's waiting for him. And But the one thing I don't understand is why she wants to leave Shangri-La.
No,
that's not really established.
No,
because she surely knows that she'll die. Maybe she just wants to get away. She might be someone with a dark part of her which just hasn't been cured.
There is the question: if you're offered immortality, quite a lot of people say I wouldn't want it. Living forever is hell. It's an eternity of hell. But and that's, I'm sure that's true for some people, and other people would be very happy being alive for either a very extended time or forever. And she may just be one of those people who's tired of life but still 20 and wants to, I mean, what's she doing? Spinning all day.
But I think, it'd be nice if there was some reason given, or just just is not addressed.
Well, of course, the original film was 6 hours. And then he got it down to over 3 hours at the test screening. And that was too long, of course. So I mean, I don't know why he made it 6 hours to begin with, and then even 3 hours for the 1930s. That's quite something. But not that it was unprecedented. So there could have been a lot of stuff in there that was, if it's a film that's had to be cut down and not made as a 2 hour and a half film.
Yeah.
If it was originally made as an hour and a half film, you'd think he would get that in there in a more concise way.
Yeah.
But it may have just been lost, and that may be one of the results of it being cut. You lose stuff like that.
Yeah, because there are. I mean, even in the World War II version, which was cut slightly, there are scenes which were cut out, like between Robert Conway and Sandra, which are quite key to their story.
Right.
You know, their romantic story, and they're cut out of the of one version.
There's
so
the thing with censors; they don't care about story. Charlie Chaplin made a film called A Woman of Paris in the 1920s, 1923, I think. And like the state of Kansas cut out all scenes of people smoking. And people smoke a lot in that film. Yeah. And you just think, I mean, I don't know what's left. I don't know, there'd be about a 10-minute film or something. There wouldn't be, I don't know how you get the story. Some of the best scenes, unfortunately, have people smoking at the same time. Anyway, yeah.
One statistic I remember from the commentary, though, is that Frank Capra filmed 1 million feet of film.
God.
And the ratio of filmed to used is 93:1.
And I guess I don't know if it's tempting to think if it's sitting out there somewhere in an attic, but this the DVD you can buy now, restored version. I think one of the guys worked on it for 25 years. Yeah. So if he hasn't found it yet, it's probably the best version we're going to get. Yes. I'm not sure I'd actually want to watch a 6 hour or even a 3 hour version of
No, you're right.
Lost Horizon. A lot of it's probably the philosophy side of it, which I do find I'm not that interested in that aspect of it, to be honest. So back to the plot. Conway meets the High Lama, who turns out to be this Belgian priest. We said that, and we called Perrault, who first discovered the valley in 1713. And the long life isn't really explained, apart from I think he says, we have an absence of struggle, and so you're so calm and peaceful that you don't age as quickly. There's no stress, which I guess is fairly legitimate. Yeah, the way they show that is, didn't he have to saw off his own leg? That sounds funny now I say it. The priest Chang tells him about Perrault, who founded Shangri-La. Yeah, I think there was a monastery there already. Yeah, founded Shangri-La, but he got gangrene or something. Yeah, sort of his leg. So when Conway meets him, he sees the telltale crutch by his side, which appears. Yeah, it's not there at first, then it appears in a later scene. That was something to do with what you said, the refilming of it, and the cutting. But so he discovers that he is. That's his proof that this is the same Father Perrault he's been told about. Yeah. It's not really convincing, and in fact, later the camera sort of goes down to his lack of a leg as well, which. You basically see his foot, and unless you're prepared for it, you're thinking, the other one could be there. He might be sitting on it, He might be sitting cross-legged. But I found, this is where I thought, Shangri-La, I think, a lot of people would like to live there. I mean, everyone's got their kind of Shangri-La, as it were. This is the ELO song. I love the ELO song a lot, and it's about loss. I think it's about a girl leaving him, and he says, my Shangri-La has gone away. But then there's a beautiful musical bit at the end where he says, I will return. And of course Conway, that's his promise, he will return. But the one bit that would make me not want to stay there might be the philosophy of Perrault, who is I thought he's a bit like a mad cult leader. This is our way. Yeah, it's all lovely, but if you stray too much, I wonder how lovely it would be. And that's the same with all these utopias. Yeah, perfect if you play along with the system, but any kind of outside that, if you don't fit in, quite often the punishments are severe. Well, in fact, there's this essay by Isaiah Berlin, who's a political philosopher, which is quite good because it introduced me to an idea which I hadn't thought of before, which is the very idea of a utopia, even if it's a really good idea, can itself lead to horrible things happening, because you get the idea that the end justifies the means, so that anything we can do to end up in a utopia where everyone will be happy, we can do, which means let's kill everyone who disagrees with us and then we'll all be happy. It has to be that way. I mean, I quite like the idea of communism. I think it's got a lot of attractions, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, for a start, people are human.
Yes.
And power, it corrupts.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's a leader. There probably
Yeah.
are, but they're the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah.
I mean, communism was an attempt at a utopia.
Yeah.
And it's got some good ideas, working together for the good of everyone.
Yeah.
But in reality,
No.
it just can't work. And I think that's the same with all these utopian ideas. And I think Shangri-La, there's got to be this bubbling dark.
Yeah. Well, I read, I think this was on Wikipedia, talking about the differences between the film and the book. Apparently it's implied in the book that people who don't agree with Shangri-La are quietly bumped off. I don't know if that's true. Obviously, you haven't got to it.
No, I didn't get to that.
Or
bit.
it's basically implied. Or, they're sort of sent out into the wilderness where they're going to die.
I know in Thomas More's Utopia, if you commit quite a bad crime, then you become a slave.
Yeah. Well, it's like Plato, the original one, Plato's idea. He says, the only way we're going to make this work is if we tell people that there are 3 types of people: the gold, the silver, and the bronze. Say.
Right.
And the bronze, if you're a bronze, you're a worker, and you can never move out of that strata. And at the top of the gold, who are born gold, they're the thinkers, they're the philosophers.
Right.
Also, another thing Plato said is we're going to get rid of all the poets, because they're the ones who will tell people, who will make people realise that there are other...
Give them ambition and dreams.
Yes, yeah. So
and that's interesting, because in Utopia, again, there's the people who shine at school.
yeah.
They become the sort of philosophers and the learned ones.
Yeah.
And other people work.
Yeah.
Although it's only a 6-hour day, I think. Although people like their work so much that they want to... But in their spare time, they're encouraged to learn.
Yeah.
But still, there's a sudden class divide there. And as soon as you got that, I think you're going to have a bit of aggro.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, Perrault has got that slight aspect. And, of course, there's the Christian aspect to it as well. So religion comes into it. Although I think Shangri-La is supposed to be a place where all religions can coexist.
Yeah.
And in the book it's interesting because, of course, you've got the missionary character. And as soon as she gets there, she's interested in sending a missionary there,
Right.
if not herself. And that's, I mean, again, I don't remember the second half of the book. I haven't read that bit recently, so I can't remember what happens. But that was certainly... I mean, I'm going to continue listening to it because mainly I want to find out what happens with her, actually.
Yeah.
Well,
Father
clash.
Perrault's idea is that the meek shall inherit the earth.
Mm.
And the idea of Shangri-La is they're going to get all the beautiful things, the artistic things, and then keep it there. And he says basically all the nasty people are going to wipe each other out, and then we're going to come out to the end, which I don't think really would work.
No. But it's fascinating, again, this idea of the utopia, and it won't. But
yeah,
the Christian ethic he talks about, and be kind is the one simple rule.
Yeah.
But of course, I mean, Christianity is the same. It's that kind of, all the benevolence side of it, which is great.
Yeah.
But if you don't abide by those rules, then you're cast into hell and will burn forever.
Or we've got the Inquisition,
Yeah, all those kind of things. So,
but in a way, the form of the story where Robert Conway at the end of it leaves Shangri-La and is searching to get back into it, is sort of aligns with the actual truth, where you've got an ideal position where you want to be, but you can't quite get back to it, but you've always got the memory of life could be wonderful, and you're always working towards it, but you never actually attain it. I mean, that's the truth of it, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good philosophy. Just do your best. Yes. So what's the next sort of development in the film? I suppose it's George. Well, the characters change. We've talked about that already.
Lovers and Barnard both find a place there, and they realise that they want to stay.
Yes, but George Conway, the younger brother, gets together with Maria, and they do persuade that it's all a sham.
Yeah, he says Father Perrault is, he was from 1700s.
Yeah.
And then George Conway says, "Did you see his birth certificate?"
Yeah.
And in a way, it's a sort of a silly question, but then, I mean, you think, well, actually, I didn't.
Good point. Yeah.
So it does seem like a sudden switch, but also, I mean, it is quite. I found it convincing enough.
Oh yeah, I was just trying to think. I can't remember how they.
Well, he says, Maria. Well, you would say that because you're, if you leave, you were born in 1888, or you came here in 1888, and she says, no. Chang tells everyone that I'm old. Do I look old?
Yeah.
She says, and so that's another.
So, I mean, you said
thing.
that earlier. Why is she lying? It's never.
Yeah.
It's not. That's the less convincing bit.
I mean, but that's what convinces
Conway.
Robert Conway that she isn't lying.
And his disappointment is palpable. You really think no, and you can see his face drop.
Yeah.
He's good in this, actually, isn't he?
Yeah.
Who is it? Ronald Coleman.
Yeah.
So yeah, they leave. I mean, the High Lama dies, and this is the other bit. He names Conway as his successor.
Yeah.
Which is quite a. You think Chang's probably going, "What about me?" Although he's only. He's not a full. There's supposed to be these lamas. I think this must be in the book. Chang is not a full lama yet.
Right.
And you never see them.
He's just a la.
Yes. But in the book, when he's called before the High Lama, that's a real rarity,
right. Yeah.
you know, for them to actually even see him. So to be suddenly named as the successor is it's almost like, oh, I mean, again, maybe I'm playing up the racial thing, but it's like, oh, Chang can't be. He's Chinese. I need a Westerner, of course. Only Westerners were built to rule.
Also, I mean, Robert Conway keeps on saying that he felt as though he's been here before, and there is the idea of lamas are found because they're reincarnated.
Yes.
And I wondered if they're hinting at Robert Conway. Sort of, I mean, he's obviously not a reincarnation of Perot.
And then I like that explanation. They don't even allude to that in the film, really, but it does fit in with the Tibetan.
He does say
way.
that he feels as though he's been there before, and it could be just that it's because he feels as though it's his place.
Well, I like that. I'll take that. I don't know if there's anything in the book that explains it better, so I'll let you know.
Also, of course, that's a link to The Man Who Would Be King, because Sean Connery starts saying, "Have you ever been in a place and you know you've been there before?" And of course, for him, it's the opposite. He's got a delusion that he's a king or a god.
Yes.
But here, Robert Conway's actually found his true home.
Yeah. So the Dalai Lama dies, and during the funeral, which again I think is a beautiful scene with all the torches going through that hallway. It's that hallway again. Yeah. Amazing. But they leave. George Conway, Robert Conway, and Maria. I think if I was Robert Conway and I was convinced it was all a lie, I think I might still want to stay there because it's really nice.
Yeah. Or he'd go and see Sonia and say, "Do you want to come?"
Yeah. But even if it wasn't true, you think, "Well, it's still very nice here. I mean, it's got squirrels and deer and birds with flutes." But out they go back into the. And there's you really feel the difference once you're back out in the wind and you've been in Shangri-La for a while.
And they're suddenly with these porters who are really quite contemptuous of them. I mean, they even take shots at them. They're just totally contemptuous of them. And Maria, of course, at first she's all right, but then suddenly we see her completely transformed into an old woman. Yeah,
back to her true age.
And George Conway...
He commits suicide, which is quite a... and that didn't look as though it had been cut out at any point. But suicide is one of those subjects that,
you're right.
You tend not to... especially American film boards at the time, and even now I think has to be quite well justified. But off he goes down the mountain. I mean, he's a disturbed individual, George Conway. Yeah, it turns out. But even throughout there, you think, what are you so worried about?
He is a bit frantic in his need to get away from Shangri-La. Almost though you feel as though he's not comfortable with himself.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it may be not willful suicide, I guess, if it's looked on as madness. When you're out in the snow blindless, the woman... Well, I don't think he was in love with her at all. I think he was using her, but let's say he was, and that could be another thing. Going mad is perhaps a more likely explanation.
But of course, that leaves poor Robert Conway thinking, now I really want to get back to Shangri-La. I've been basically duped. It was stupid of me to leave anyway.
Well, he carries on, though.
Well, I wondered... I wondered if he was trying to get back to Shangri-La.
I don't know. I just didn't get that impression then.
Oh, right.
But he does make it to not civilization, but a village. Yeah, it collapses by a Buddhist stupa. And this has got nothing to do with anything. But when he's found, I really thought it's like the Jawas in Star Wars. How did you? Suddenly all these feet and these long robes. Gather around him, scuttling about.
And the rest of the story is dealt with. I mean, there's a bit of it is basically summarised in London, where they talk about the long journey to. They find that Robert Conway has been found. They go and get him, and he's actually suffering from amnesia. He's completely forgotten about Shangri-La,
Mm.
and on the way back he remembers it. I can't remember if it's a piece of music or if that's a deleted scene.
Yeah, I mean, in the book, this is how it starts, which is another Lost World type adventure-y thing, is the framing sequence, where someone tells a story, and quite often then someone will tell a story within that story.
Yeah.
But this is one where they're talking about, there was an incident in Afghanistan, or Baskal, where the plane, I shouldn't have mentioned that, and then someone says, I want to talk to you. Do you remember that story? Well, I knew the guy, Conway. He says, he's not gone missing. I found him in a Chinese nunnery, or whatever it's called. And that's how it starts. And then he tells, over the course of an evening, he tells him Conway's story. Yeah, and he's taking him back by ship to London. And I think this was filmed for the film, but it was cut out. But the story starts this way. They're aboard a ship. He's got amnesia, and a famous pianist is on board, and he plays some Schubert or something.
Yeah.
And then Conway, while everyone's round him because he's a celebrity, Conway sits down at the piano and plays, and the pianist hears it and says, "What's that? Where'd you get that from?" And he says, "Oh, it's not Schubert. I can't remember who it is, but I'll say Schubert because it's the only one I can think of for now." No, it is important because it's someone who died in the 1840s. Begins with O. I have to put this on the errata. Anyway, Conway says, "No, it's an unpublished piece. I learnt it from one of his students." And he says, "That's impossible. He died in 1843 or whatever." Yeah. And then Conway's memory, that clears the cobwebs, and his memory comes back. And of course, he learnt it from a student who was in Shangri-La.
Yeah.
Shangri-La's like a United Nations. There's all kinds of people from Russians, British, all there. It's like an ark, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just before World War II. It's the ark of culture and humanity.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, that's the framing.
Yeah.
And then Conway escapes from the ship because he got his memory back and he wants to get back, and that's how the film ends.
Yeah. He's super determined to get back. We hear sort of tales of how he's escaped 5 times after being locked up, and
that's right. And he does make it back. And the DVD's got 2 alternative endings, where it's got the ending and an alternative ending. One where he looks up and he sees the entrance to Shangri-La. That's the ending. Yeah. And then there's an alternative ending where he looks up and there's Sandra waiting for him. Yeah. Which is, it's awful. I'm glad they didn't show that one. Amazing he makes it back though. But then he's Robert Conway.
Yeah. Yes.
But there's a line at the end given by the guy telling the story. He says, I believe because I want to believe it. Yeah. Which is, of course, the whole basis of belief, really. It's the problem with it. You quite often don't want facts to get in the way of a belief because it's a comfortable belief. Yeah. And he says, let's hope we all find our Shangri-La. Yeah. That's the moral of the story.
I said we're getting out of here. Back to civilization. I've made a deal with the porters. They've brought in a load of books or something. They're leaving tomorrow at dawn. They're waiting for us 5 miles outside the valley. Come on, get your things together. Where's your topcoat?
You can't leave, George.
Why not? What's going to stop me?
You mustn't. You've got to stay here now.
Stay here? What's the matter with you, Bob? You've been acting strangely ever since we came here. I've never seen you like this. Why can't we leave? What's stopping us?
Something grand and beautiful, George. Something I've been searching for all my life. The answer to the confusion and bewilderment of a lifetime. I've found it, George, and I can't leave it. You mustn't either.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's any other points about it, really? I think we got quite a lot in there about the utopian aspect.
Yeah. It's a film which I thought I wouldn't enjoy as much as I did. But whenever I see it, I think, I quite enjoyed it, even though, there's no conflict. But of course, there is. You do enjoy it anyway.
I mean, I think, obviously, the exciting bits are the journey bits, and they're very well done. And then Shangri-La's just quite a nice place to be in the film, but there are some... Like, I find Chang quite annoying.
Yes, sorry.
And also, I don't take to the High Lama at all.
No. Basically, Sandra is the best character.
Yeah, she's lovely. And a little fact about her: she was played by Jane Wyatt. And I'm not much of a Trekkie, but we may have some Trekkies listening to this. She played Spock's human mother in the Star Trek series.
Yes.
So, she's good. There's the Disneyfication. With the squirrel, but why not? It's Shangri-La,
It's quite fun.
But there are bits when I'm watching it, and I'm not quite convinced by certain aspects. But the overall effect, I mean, as I say, the design of the film, although a bit incongruous, perhaps not very realistic, is beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's one of the films we'll talk about in She as well later. One of the great things about that is the design of the place itself and that's quite. Obviously, that's another 1930s film, so that's very Art Deco as well.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm drawn to.
Yeah.
So, but the overall effect of the film is brilliant, and it was, I think, was it a hit for Columbia? I think it was one of the most expensive films they made.
Yeah.
But I think it did do well for them. And Lost Horizon is a classic.
Yeah.
It's one of those, although it's a Lost World book, which is kind of looked at in the fantasy stroke science fiction pulp genre, so perhaps a lower class of literature. I don't think that, but you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
Whereas Lost Horizon is of that class, but it's a mainstream novel. It's literature for a lot of people. It's not seen as, definitely not pulp, and I don't think it's really seen as, although it is fantasy, it's one of those books that people don't recognise because it's mainstream. Which is what you want all these things to be. Of course, you just want people to say, well, just concentrate on the story, and genre fades away to some degree, although it's useful. But yeah, overall, brilliant film.
Yes.
And if you do have the DVD, I think it's worth. I haven't watched it for a while. You watched it recently. The commentary, it's very good, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is about the restoration, but I found it fascinating just about the mechanics of the just restoring a film.
There's the only bit I remember from the commentary, and I wonder why, is the bit where they're talking about Sandra there's a long shot of her dives into the pool and she's totally naked. It's a long shot, of course, and it's not the actress.
It's a stunt woman,
Jane Wyatt. It's a stunt woman, but I don't know who it was, the Breen board or whoever was wanted assurances that she wasn't naked, that she had a body stocking on or something, that she was covered, and they said, oh yes she was, but actually she wasn't. No. But you can't tell anyway. It's too far away. That's the only bit I remember from the oh no, I've condemned myself. That was the other thing I was going to say, was again in relation to She. It's interesting, Maria, and in fact anyone, once you leave Shangri-La, you age, because Aisha, of course, in She age once she steps twice into the fire of life, or whatever it's called, and she ages. And there's that aspect to Lost Horizon as well. There's a book I read recently called Stones of Enchantment. It's a volcano in Africa, and he goes into it, and there's a civilization in there. And I think in that, it's the radiation in the volcano or something that gives you long life. So in there's people from sort of someone there who's arrived there in the 1600s and things. I can't remember what year that was written. It might be I think that it's either the 30s, it might be the 40s, it might be the 50s. So I can't tell, but that's got echoes of it as well.
Well, all this sort of reminds me of tales of going to fairyland and coming back, because there's also the period of amnesia, forgetting you've been there. And when you come away from fairyland, if you've got fairy gold, it turns to dead leaves. You mentioned that in another of our. It was The Man Who Would Be King, because that's a period where he says, I've been away for 1,000 years. You know? I feel as though we're talking about these adventure films, we're close to some core truth about it all, and the human condition, and it's all, there's somewhere it all unifies. Fairy stories, Lost World, adventure. There's some inner truth there that speaks to everyone, and that we all want to go on these adventures from the safety of our armchairs. But there's some truth there. Well, we've got 3 more films to find out what that is. So the next one we're doing is some small film called Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is our second film from 1981. Have you seen that before? No, I thought I'd watch it for the first time, and I've heard it's quite bad, but I'll probably. This has had the most interest from people. We've got quite a few. I've been looking at the stats on our website, and I'm really encouraged by the listeners. We probably get, I'd say, on the day it comes out, I think we get most visitors to the website, and then it kind of drops down. So it tends to be sort of 150. Unique visitors over a few days, and let's say hopefully maybe half that. I hope that's not too many. Let's say a third are actually listening to the entire podcast. So that's a fairly. I mean, what's that going to be? Just 40, let's say. Let's say about 40. That's pretty good. I'm quite pleased with that. So
I feel as though Raiders of the Lost Ark, we might get a few more.
Blip.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure there'll be people listening who are know a lot more about the film than we do. So anyway, this is us doing it. So I'm looking forward to Raiders of the Lost Ark anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably the film I've seen the most.
Yes.
Actually, Hidden Fortress.
Oh, really?
Maybe. Well, I'm a big fan of Kurosawa, as I said. So I do wonder. That may be close. I think the most obscure film we've done so far is Lawrence of Arabia. Probably got the least interest.
Yeah.
But that's only going by the hits. You can't really tell.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you do have any comments about these films, please do leave a comment. Just say you like it, or something you disagree with, or to contribute some facts or thoughts. Would be very welcome. Yes. Thank you very much for listening, and we shall see you hopefully sometime in the next couple of weeks for Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Bye.
Tell me something, Gainsford. What do you think of his talk about Shangri-La? Do you believe it?
Yes. Yes, I believe it. I believe it because I want to believe it. Gentlemen, I give you a toast. Here's my hope that Robert Conway will find his Shangri-La. Here's my hope that we all find our Shangri-La.